There's a very specific moment right before a storm arrives when everything feels just a little off. The air seems thicker, the wind fades away, and the atmosphere feels heavier in a way that's difficult to describe but easy to notice once you pay attention. It's the kind of feeling that makes everything around you seem quieter and more still, as if the world is pausing before something bigger begins. So what exactly is going on in that moment, and why does air feel heavier before a storm? Even if you don't immediately recognize it, your body does, picking up on subtle environmental changes. That strange sensation isn't random. It's connected to real shifts happening in the atmosphere. So let's get into it, right here, on History of Simple Things. One of the biggest reasons the air feels heavier before a storm is the drop in atmospheric pressure. Air pressure is the force created by the weight of the air above you pressing down on the surface, and under normal conditions, your body is used to that pressure remaining relatively steady throughout the day. When a storm approaches, it usually brings a low-pressure system where warm air begins to rise and reduces the amount of air pressing downward. Even though this technically means there is less pressure, your body is very sensitive to that change. That shift can feel unusual or slightly uncomfortable, and your brain interprets it as heaviness, even though the air itself hasn't actually gained any weight in reality. Instead, it's the sudden imbalance that stands out. At the same time that pressure is dropping, humidity is usually rising. Storm systems rely on warm, moisture-filled air, so the atmosphere becomes increasingly saturated with water vapor before rain begins to fall. While humid air is actually slightly lighter than dry air under the same conditions, it doesn't feel that way to your body. High humidity slows down the evaporation of sweat, which is one of your body's main cooling mechanisms. When that process is disrupted, heat builds up more easily on your skin, making the air feel sticky, dense, and uncomfortable. The added moisture also makes the air feel less refreshing when you breathe, reinforcing that sense of heaviness even further. Another key factor is the movement of warm air rising from the ground. Before a storm forms, warm air near the surface begins to lift into the atmosphere, creating instability that allows clouds to develop and grow. This rising motion is essential for storm formation, but it also changes how the air feels at ground level. As warm air moves upward, it can leave behind a layer of air that feels uneven or unsettled. Even though there is a lot of motion happening above you, the surface can feel unusually still and slightly dense at the same time. That contrast between active movement above and quiet stillness below contributes to the sensation that the air is heavier than usual. Right before many storms, there is often a noticeable drop in wind, creating what is commonly called the calm before the storm. This period can feel strangely quiet, as if the environment has temporarily paused. Without wind to move and mix the air, heat and moisture become trapped near the ground instead of being carried away. Normally, even a gentle breeze helps balance the atmosphere and keeps it feeling lighter and more comfortable. But in this situation, that movement disappears, allowing warm, humid air to linger in place. The result is a buildup of still, dense air that surrounds you, making everything feel heavier and more confined than it did just moments before. Your body plays a major role in how you experience these atmospheric changes. Humans are more sensitive to shifts in pressure and humidity than they often realize, even if those changes are relatively small. When air pressure drops, it can slightly affect how gases and fluids behave inside your body, sometimes leading to mild sensations like fatigue, headaches, or a general sense of discomfort. At the same time, increased humidity can make breathing feel less refreshing, even though oxygen levels remain unchanged. These small physical responses combine into a larger perception that the air is heavier or harder to move through, even though the change is actually happening inside your body rather than in the air itself. What makes this phenomenon so noticeable is that it isn't caused by just one factor, but by several happening at once. Falling pressure, rising humidity, warm air movement, and reduced wind all interact to create a unique set of conditions. Each of these changes affects your senses in a subtle way, but together they produce a strong and unmistakable feeling. The air seems heavier not because its weight has increased, but because its properties have shifted away from what feels normal and comfortable. It's this combination of changes that creates that distinct, almost tangible sensation right before a storm arrives. That heavy feeling in the air before a storm isn't just a dramatic way of describing the weather, it's a real response to multiple atmospheric changes happening at the same time. As pressure drops, humidity rises, warm air shifts, and the wind fades, your body begins to notice those changes, even if you're not fully aware of them in the moment. What you're feeling isn't the air becoming heavier, but the environment becoming more intense and less balanced overall. Once you understand what's happening behind the scenes, that quiet moment before a storm starts to feel less mysterious and more meaningful. It becomes a natural signal, a subtle warning built into the atmosphere itself, letting you know that change is coming long before the first drop of rain ever falls. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.